Welcome back. We've got some more signing news to discuss and potential signings to come. So Tyson Barrie's signing a one-year deal with the Oilers. It's supposed to be a little bit below $4 million. That's a pretty good show-me deal for Barrie. And why not? So you're coming off of a year with Toronto where your numbers were not great. And you're like, all right, well, I got to go somewhere else, pad up my numbers so I can really cash in on the next contract. Why don't I play on the power play for the Oilers? Makes complete and total sense. And so Barrie, the one-year deal, he apparently turned down bigger deals elsewhere in order to sign in Edmonton. Again, it's a smart play. If I can make an extra $1 million playing for Vancouver, as an example, we'll come back to Vancouver. If I can make an extra $1 million playing in Vancouver, but I don't foresee that I'm going to put up the same amount of points that I might in Edmonton, I'm probably going to sign in Edmonton, forfeit that $1 million now, so I can make that more money later. Or maybe I just think that Edmonton has a better shot at winning Stanley Cup. So, yeah, Tyson Barrie to the Oilers. Very good work done by the Oilers thus far. The only one question mark we have left now is in goal, I would think. But it's possible that Ken Holland has something else percolating as well. Maybe he brings in Jimmy Howard to back up Koskinen for a year and kicks that can down the road. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. Grace is off the market, so... but still, I think Edmonton's done a pretty good job. Now, Jordan Greenway has signed a 2-year, $4.2 million extension, restricted free agent with Minnesota. What this means is that the Minnesota Wild, according to Cap Friendly, they got a full roster. All 23 players of a 23-man roster signed. They only have $2 million in cap space left. So Minnesota, by re-signing Greenway, may very well be done. So as a Minnesota fan, you can sit back and say, all right, how do I feel if we're actually done? I don't think Guerin is done. But I think that free agents, those are finished, and I think any other moves will be made via trade. So whether or not Parise's still going to end up being on the board, we'll see. But there were rumors about Parise last season at the deadline that the Islanders were working on it and they couldn't get the financials worked out, and then it just fell apart at the last minute. So we'll see. See what happens. Alex Pietrangelo trying to make a on the down low trip to Vegas. It's the worst place you want to go for a down low trip. You know, it's funny because apparently he's recognized at the airport, and it gets out that he's in Vegas for a visit. Vegas is the front runner to sign Alex Pietrangelo. He's there. He's not expected to make a decision today, but it is the worst city to visit if you want to be anonymous. It just is. This is a city that's plugged in when it comes to the NHL. They know what's going on. And yeah, it doesn't surprise me somebody recognized him. Now that he's been recognized, it wouldn't surprise me if he signs there today. Sure, why not? But he may be visiting elsewhere as well. So this might be one of those courting situations where he goes to 3 different locations, see what they're offering, and all right, I'll sign there. But Vegas is the front runner. Troy Stecher has signed a 2-year contract with the Detroit Red Wings for $1.77 million per year. And it is sad as a Vancouver fan, but it is also noteworthy that Detroit has done an excellent job in free agency. Steve Yzerman, unsurprisingly, doing a lot to help shore up that blue line. It's a good move. And it started last week with bringing in Stahl, and they're adding NHL level defensemen to the Detroit Red Wings and fixing a blue line that last year was not great. So Stecher, 2 years at $1.77 million per year. That's a very reasonable cap hit for Troy Stecher. It's less money than the Canucks would have had to qualify him for. So it does kind of stand to reason that, yeah, the Canucks not qualifying him made some sense, but they didn't call him either. At least before the start of free agency yesterday, there were no calls from reports that I saw between the Canucks and Troy Stecher. So basically, let me change that. People are like, wait, what's he talking about? Canucks current defenseman on the Canucks blue line, according to their depth chart. The top 6 would project to be Hughes, Edler, Myers, Jordy Ben would be in the top 4 potentially. Ulevy and Rafferty would get in, and then Rathbone and Wu could be the healthy scratches. This is a defense that gets you completely run out of the NHL. I'm just saying. The pressure is on. They need a top 4 defenseman, and now the next one has gone to Edmonton and Tyson Barrie. So There's some pressure in Vancouver. I don't think it's as crazy in Vancouver as it is with what I've seen with Bruins fans over Krugleven. Like I get it, Krugleven sucks and he's the best offensive defenseman they had, but I think there's a bit of an overreaction from the fan base. And I know people are gonna say, well, that's Twitter, that's how it works, and it is, but some fan bases seem to panic way too quickly. And it's something I've said people need to guard against. Don't panic too quickly about things that are happening. For instance, with Vancouver, it is possible that Jim Benning has decided by looking at what's available on the market that he's going to make offers to certain players that go elsewhere, and then he may have a trade there as a backup that he's going to go to. There are a lot of decent names still available, but yeah, this blue line for Vancouver. I mean, I want to see Ulevy get a chance. Ulevy deserves a chance to be in the top six, and I think Rafferty made a push for that top six role in Utica. Maybe this ends up being the top six. I have some concerns. I have some tremendous concerns about experience and about Jordy Ben projecting to be in the top four. I don't think Ulevy in a top four position right away would be necessarily great. But again, we'll see what Benning does. We've certainly been willing to pile on Benning about how dumb this move is and that move is, and then you can look back later and say, oh, that actually wasn't too bad. The one thing that I'll say, and I've talked about this in recent videos as well, the Canucks' major problem is really a relatively simple one. They have too much money spent on players that you could argue they could replace for cheaper. And, I mean, I like Beagle, I like Roussel, but you could replace those players for cheaper. Ericsson's $6 million, that's problematic. You got Brandon Sutter, $4.5 million. That's $16.5 million between those four players. So, this is where that pain shows up, where you see players leaving and going elsewhere, and you say, why couldn't we keep them? And the reality is that the Vancouver Canucks, and again, I have to say this for Benning, he's likely looking at next year and saying, I'm going to have to keep Pettersson, I'm going to have to keep Hughes, and I'm going to have to keep Demko. They're all restricted free agents next year. I have to think ahead. So that's why you don't just throw all the money to keep everybody together. And yeah, it sucks. It sucks to see them leaving to go to other teams, but I do wish them well. Stecher, the latest, I'm wishing well. But for the Canucks, they have to figure this out because, Hughes and Edler is your two best defensemen. I can be okay with that. Myers is one of the top four. I can be okay with that. Jordy Ben should be the number 6. There were times where he was a healthy scratch this year when you're looking and you're going, all right, so would Rafferty end up in the top 4? We'll see. But the biggest, most important thing to do right now is don't panic. The biggest takeaway is not to panic. So it's not just a catchphrase from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a good idea to just not do the whole panicking thing. What do you mean you don't know what Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is? That's sad if you don't know what Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is. Anyways, there you go. Don't panic. Here's to hoping that Vancouver and amongst other teams can get things figured out. I did think it was funny reading on Twitter today that there are Bruins fans that are mad about the signing of Craig Smith because he's a third liner and they needed a second liner. So that completely discounts his goal scoring, which has been pretty strong. 18 goals this year for Nashville, even though he only had less than 14 minutes a game. I think it's 13 minutes and 46 seconds per game, somewhere in that region. So he's a pretty good goal scorer if you go by goals per 60 minutes on the ice. But it's one of those weird things, and it's why I say it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. So for teams that don't jump into the fray with free agency, fan bases will go crazy. Vancouver being one of those ones. And yet we can look back later and say, well, that's a good idea. And when you look at some of what we're talking about with Vancouver when it comes to the bad contracts, it's because Benning went out there on free agency day and said, I'm going to give these guys the big money and we're going to bring those guys in. And now years later, we're having some regrets because we're losing other players. So we'll see. The marketplace has changed completely from where it was last year, of course. And so some teams are being somewhat punished, if that's the right term, more than others. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And don't necessarily write off your team yet for next year, because we have a long time till the start of next season. There's a lot that can happen. And who knows, maybe we look back a year from now and say, wow, Vancouver had some good young defensemen that were waiting to break through. And they finally did. And it was brilliant as they won their division or whatever. I don't necessarily see that happening, but hey, stranger things have happened. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.